Hello, Walking the Ropes fans. I am Blake, and welcome to the next episode of Walking the Ropes Wrestling Review for AEW Dynamite from Newark, New Jersey. In today's show, we have a singles debut, a car is bet, and a match after match is set for next week, and an exciting main event. But before that, make sure to check out the Walking the Ropes link tree for all things Walking the Ropes. To open the show, we had CM Punk. He joined on the commentary for the night. And then we opened with a singles match between Adam Cole and Frankie Kazarian. And they immediately started out with exchanging headlocks and throws, seeming to be feeling each other out for a little bit. Cole then dumps Kazarian outside and then tosses him onto the apron. And then sets up for a move inside of the ropes, but Frankie stops him and hits a head scissor kick inside the ropes. Back in the ring, Cole stops Kazarian and locks in a headlock, and Frankie flips over Cole after Cole went for a backdrop, and then locks in a submission, and Cole kicks his way out. Cole then hits a neck breaker for a near fall. He then sets up for a super kick in the corner, but Frankie catches it and hits a German suplex for a near fall. Kazarian then goes for a crossface chicken wing, and Cole fights out and hits a super kick for a near fall. Cole then goes for the Panama Sunrise, and Frankie catches him and hits an Alabama Slam and then a springboard leg drop for a near fall. They then exchange some shots in the ring, and Frankie turns Cole inside out, and Cole responds, hitting a Ushigoroshi driver for a near fall, and then Frankie goes for another leg scissor in the ropes, but Cole moves, hits the Panama Sunrise, followed by a big knee after he exposed his knee from his knee pad, and then gets the win. Adam Cole defeats Frankie Kazarian. For my Malteser scale, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. It was a solid match, fantastic first match for Cole to debut with. Match we never really thought we'd get to see again. I assume they've gone once or twice in Ring of Honor before, so it was a really exciting thing to see. After the match, Cole gets on the mic and says that hope is dangerous, says the locker room hopes to catch the Elite, but they can't. Says the three people have gotten under his skin since he's been here have been Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Christian Cage. He then challenges them to a trios match at the Grand Slam next week. And he says, against him, the Bucks, so Matt and Nick Jackson, the Super Click. We then get the Lucha Brothers talking about Butcher and the Blade, and they say that they will have to bleed, cry, and sweat to beat them for the titles, referring to what the Butcher and Blade would have to do. We then get Fuego del Sol. He calls out Miro and says he will put his newly purchased car on the line in a match for the TNT Championship this Friday against Miro. MJF, then makes his way to the ring. He talks about last week and says that he's now in the armpit of America, New Jersey. He then shits on Jersey some more, talks about the fans at home, says that he doesn't care if he offended them last week. He then talks about the late, great Brian Pillman. He looks up and as he starts to talk, and then he goes, "Who am I kidding?" And he starts to look down and continues. Says his son is the worst excuse for a second-generation star, and says that to warn his son to not show up at the Grand Slam. Brian Pillman Jr. makes his way through the crowd and hits MJF with the chair, and then is taken out by Wardlow, and Pillman dumps him to the apron and swings the chair, and MJF and Wardlow leave. JR and Pillman then are shown with their interview from earlier in the day. JR talks about redemption and asks if that's Pillman's plan. Pillman says that he wants to make his dad proud and says that he and MJF are not the same. Says that MJF next week isn't stepping in the ring with any man. He's stepping in the ring with a Pillman. I'm really looking forward to this match. I think it's going to be a very exciting thing. Definitely Pillman's biggest match ever. He's definitely going to do his dad proud for sure. We then get Christian Cage and the Jurassic Express responding to Adam Cole. And they say that they are better friends. And Cage says that, well, Cole has some pretty cool friends. They pulled him out of developmental after a really long time. and then they accept Adam Cole's challenge. We then get FTR versus Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. And we started out with Matt Sydal versus Dax Harwood. And he rolls up Dax twice for a near fall and gets a head scissor right off the start. And Dante and Matt then double team Dax as well. Dax then works Dante into the corner and starts to beat on him and tosses him into the other corner. Dante then flips over and knocks Cash down, who was on the apron. And then goes for a springboard, but Cash kicks his legs out, and Cash starts to beat on Dante outside after being tagged. Back in the ring, Cash continues the beatdown, and Dante fights out, but FTR makes a quick tag, and Dante stops them and fights to make his own tag to Matt. Matt then clears the ring, and Dante and Matt dive on their opponents outside. And then back in the ring, Dax hits a big elbow and knocks Matt down. FTR then double teams Matt, and they start to wear him down, making quick tags in and out. Matt then comes back and tags Dante in and hits a big drop kick that clears out FTR, and then he hits a standing senton as well. Cash then rolls up Dante for a near fall. Dante then fights both members of FTR, and Matt and Dante roll up both men for a near fall. Dante then continues to fight both men, but FTR hits the big rig for the win. FTR and defeats Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. For my Malteser scale, I gave this a 3.25 out of 5. It was a really good match, and I am really happy to see they're trying to put Dante back in the tag scene. I hope that we're going to be getting Darius back soon. I hope he's not out for very long. But yeah, we're clearly setting FTR up to just become, not become, they already are a really good team. This is just a really good storytelling. We then get CM Punk talking about Minoru's complaints of his entrance music being cut off, and Archer and Suzuki talk about how they've been a tag team for a long time in Japan, and that in New York they will take Moxley and Kingston out. We then get Malachi Black making his way to the ring, and he talks to his enemy, the Nightmare Family. Rosario Dawson is in the crowd wearing a Nightmare Family jacket, and Malachi gets in her face as Cody's making his way to the ring through the crowd. Malachi turns his attention to Cody, and Rosario then locks in a sleeper hold, and Cody jumps Malachi, and they brawl into the crowd. We then get a recap of Anna Jay and the Bunnies' rivalry for their match on Friday night. And we then get Anna Jay talking about it, and she's interrupted by Uno, and he is quickly interrupted by Alex. And Alex says that he's mad about the way Uno's been dealing with everything for the Dark Order, and Five is as well. Anna says if they can't agree, then she doesn't want them at ringside. We then get Dan Lambert of American Top Team talking in the ring. He talks about how AEW cheer for small guys and they go crazy for nothing. Jericho and Jake Hager make their way to the ring, and Lambert is pissed that he has the music cut off and the crowd keeps going, singing along. Jericho shits on Lambert. Lambert then calls Jericho the master manipulator because he'll do anything to get his books and records to sell. Jericho then asks which one of the meatheads on Top Team is on top, and says that they rely on scare tactics, but they can't scare them. Hager's undefeated in MMA, and Jericho has fought MMA champions for years backstage in these wrestling promotions he's been in. He fought a beast, and he fought a wild bill, as it were, he says. Says, why don't they come beat their teeth down their throats right now? Lambert says that's not going to happen here. It'll be in New York. And Jericho says that's fine. We then get the Gun Club talking about what they did to Paul White. Says that they did it because wins and losses matter in AEW, and they're undefeated, and that doesn't seem to matter to AEW. We then get a singles match between Jade Cargill and Layla Hirsch. Layla immediately takes down Jade and starts to beat on her, and she hits a dive to the outside. And instead of hitting Jade, she hits Mark because Jade pulled Mark in front of her. Jade then tosses Layla back into the ring and starts to beat on her. Layla then knocks Jade back down into the corner and hits a double knee and a drop kick, and then locks in a cross arm breaker, but Jade fights out and starts to beat on Layla and sends her outside. Jade then beats on Layla outside of the ring and then gets back in the ring. And then back in the ring, both members now. Jade hits a pump handle driver and continues to dominate Layla. Layla fights to get a sleeper and Jade tosses her off. Layla hits a German suplex for a near fall, follows it up with a dive to the outside, and then she hits a big knee for a near fall. And she goes up to the top rope, goes for a moonsault, but Jade moves and hits a big pump kick and hits Jaded for the win. Jade Cargill defeats Layla Hirsch. For my Malteser scale, I gave this a 3.25 out of 5. It was a really solid match, and we're clearly building Jade Cargill to be a credible contender for Britt Baker's title. So I'm very excited for where this is going in the future. We then get Andrade talking about what he did to Chavo. He says that he can beat Pac or anyone whenever he wants. He didn't give the order for Chavo to do what he did. Then CM Punk on commentary talks about what just happened and is quickly interrupted by Team Taz. CM Punk then walks Hook back. He's kind of intimidating him, but it seems like that was more of the plan as he's jumped by Powerhouse Hobbs from behind, and Team Taz beats on Punk and puts him through the announcer's desk. I believe only the second time someone has been put through the announcer's desk on AEW. We then get a singles match between Shawn Spears and Darby Allin. Spears jumps Darby in the corner and then dumps him to the outside and starts to taunt Sting as he's tosses Darby back into the steps. Spears then sets the steps up by the ring and tosses Darby into them again and knees Darby. Spears then exposes his knee and runs at Darby, and Darby moves, so Spears knees the steps. Darby goes for a dive, but Tully got in the way, so Darby stopped. Spears then knocks Darby down and then wets a towel and wipes the face paint off of Darby. And then back in the ring, Spears continues to beat on Darby, and he locks in a Scorpion Deathlock, and Darby does fight to the ropes. Darby starts to come back and knocks Spears down and hits a Code Red for a near fall. Darby then goes to the top rope. Spears stops him and Darby knocks him off, and Spears beats on Spears. And then Spears grabs the chain around Darby's neck and tosses Darby off of the top ropes. And Spears goes for a Death Valley driver onto the steps, but Darby fights out, hits a baseball slide to the outside, and then sends Spears back inside, hits the coffin drop for the win. Darby Allin defeats Shawn Spears. For my Malteser scale, I gave this a 3.75 out of 5. It's a solid match, but I think we're building for some kind of match that's going to somehow include Sting and Tully. I don't know how we're going to do this because I don't think Tully is able to actually go in the ring currently or ever again. But we'll see where this is going to go from here. After the match, Darby and Sting are jumped by FTR and Spears. FTR then hits a spike driver on Sting and wipes the face paint off of him. We then get Bryan Danielson making his way to the ring, and he starts to talk about his challenge to Kenny Omega, but is interrupted by Don Callis and Kenny Omega. Tells Bryan that he thought coming to AEW was best for wrestling, and says people call me a carny piece of shit when referring to basically thinking like that's insane. Calls Bryan a mark for thinking that in the first place. Bryan then tells Don to shut up and he is here to talk to Omega. Says that eventually this will be for the title, but for now it will be for the people. Says that he's here to fight the best bout machine, and since he's been here, he's only seen Kenny running around with his buddies. Says Kenny hasn't lost his step, he's lost his balls. Kenny says he's going to fight Danielson at the Grand, what do they call it? Grand Slam, I believe it's called. And then Miro responds to Fuego. He tells him that he will bash his brains in and then he will bash his car in. We then get a tag team match, Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley versus 2.0. And before the match even starts, 2.0 and Daniel Garcia jumps Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. And then in the ring, Jeff Parker and Jon Moxley start out, and Moxley chops Jeff. Matt gets tagged in and Moxley bites him, and Moxley tosses Garcia into the steps, and Jeff uses this distraction to jump him. Matt and Jeff then beat on Moxley outside, and then back in the ring, 2.0 is in control, and they tag in and out, wearing down Moxley. Moxley then starts to fight back, taking out both men, but 2.0 double teams him, stopping his momentum. Moxley then hits a big clothesline, gets the tag, takes out both men, and then chops them in the corner. Kingston does. Kingston then knocks Garcia off the apron and then hits a spinning back fist and a DDT. And then Moxley and Kingston hit a clothesline and a Snapdragon suplex, it looked like, combo for the win. Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley defeat 2.0. My Malteser scale, I gave that a 4 out of 5. It was a really solid match. I did genuinely like it, and it sets up some really cool stuff for the future. After the match, Minoru Suzuki cuts off Moxley's music, and he makes his way to the ring slowly. Moxley and Minoru brawl as Archer and Kingston brawl, and they set up for their match in New York next week. My overall for the show, I gave a 4.25 out of 5. It was a really solid show, sets up for next week's really big event. And my match of the night is Adam Cole's debut. It's really cool. We got to see him versus Kazarian. I can't recall if it's happened before. If it hasn't, it's cool that we got to see it finally. If it has, it's cool that we got to see it again. And then for my segment of the night, I give it to Bryan and Omega confirming their matches, or their match. And I mean, eventually it's going to be for the title as well. So it'll be really, really cool. I'm super excited for next week's shows, I guess. And then for my performers of the night, I'm going to give it to 2.0 because if you really think about it, they went from on NXT not doing a whole lot. I mean, I think they were in the Dusty Rhodes tournament, but they didn't make it very far. To now they're regular main event workers for AEW. Yeah, they don't necessarily win, but they're in the main event 90% of the time since they've debuted for AEW. And I think that's just fantastic. And that is all for this episode of Walking the Ropes Wrestling Review. Thank you all for dropping in. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications whenever we upload a video. And I will see you in the next one.